Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Evolution of a Property Business podcast. I think this is episode number 8. Forgive me if I've got that wrong. And today I'm joined by the enigmatic, the wonderful Phil Leslie. Say hi, Phil.
How you doing, Sam? Never been called an enigmatic. Jesus, that's a big word.
It just popped into my head. I'm not quite sure what it means, but I think it suits you.
Sounded good to me. Sounded good to me.
So, how have you been today?
Yeah, good. Pretty slow day today actually, but yeah, I was building what you see behind me yesterday, the new recording studio. So yeah, got a few calls, few meetings to do today, and obviously recording this with you.
Yeah, brilliant. So if anybody doesn't twig, today is Tuesday, the day after bank holiday. So we've just had a bank holiday weekend. So we're sort of sliding back into things, catching up with emails and, getting everything ready. So it's the start of May 2022. So this is the first working day of the month. So I've just had my staff meeting with my team where we're setting out like the stall for what we want to achieve this month, setting goals and getting motivated. And for all you football fans out there, Nottingham Forest versus Bournemouth tomorrow at 7. Massive game. Don't know what's going to happen, but maybe when I record the next podcast, I'll give you an update. So if you're watching this in the future, fingers crossed for Forest. Fingers crossed we did the job, and we're in the Premier League again. So without further ado, Phil, let's jump straight in. And if you could first give everybody who doesn't know you an introduction to you and your business, and obviously there's a TV screen behind you, so just give us a little bit of an idea what that's about and what you're about and what makes you tick.
Yeah, sure. So the business up there is called LPV Property Investments, and you can see behind me as well. We've got our own podcast, and the better looking person in that photo is my wife, Leanne Tyler. We got married August 2021. Oh, imagine if I'd have got that date wrong, should have killed me. So yeah, we've got a rent to rent portfolio. We've got a buy to let down in Wiltshire. We've got lease options. We've packaged deals on for investors. I'm a mentor at Progressive Property. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, do I do too much? Do I kind of spread myself a little bit too thin sometimes? I guess I do. I'm one of these people that just can't sit still. I've got to be doing something,
Yeah.
which can be bad sometimes because you can say yes to too many things, as I'm sure you've probably done in the past.
Yeah.
And that can really have a negative and positive impact, but you've got to keep that in check. You really have.
Brilliant. Well, we had a quick chat beforehand, and I know you quite well, so I know some of the ups and downs that you've had. You do seem to do a lot. You do seem to be very active. So we'll unpack some of that and talk about some of the positives and the negatives. So if we're going to just sort of stick to the theme of the evolution of a property business, it'd be quite interesting to know what your main business models are then, because I know when we first met, it was through a deal packaging course. So alongside your own investments, what are your other sort of main strategies?
So yeah, I mean, at the moment we've got 7 rent-to-rent HMOs. We went through a period. Well, I think I acquired those in about 12 months, 4 of which off one landlord. And then the trouble which I really, and I still struggle with it, is I get too involved. It's, because I've created this sort of baby, it then turns into a monster. Which a lot of people are going to resonate with. You've created this thing, you want to be involved, you want to have some element of control. It's difficult to let go sometimes. Recently I've done that and I've outsourced elements of that. I had a conversation recently, a meeting a few days ago with someone who's an outsourcing wizard. He actually runs his own, he didn't want me to use this term, but I'm going to use it, virtual assistant. Okay, they're not virtual, they're real people. But he runs a VA company out in the Philippines. Amazing at outsourcing. Anyway, we've got a discussion to do some business together, and he's going to look at significantly outsourcing a lot of the work that I do in the background for the rent to rents to someone else, which is cool. So we've got that element of the business. We've also got the sourcing element, and we tried okay, so we tried sourcing about 3 years ago, about 4 years ago now, actually, without any education. And a lot of people would have done the same thing, try to do something without education and fallen flat on their face because their ego tells them they can do something. But, we found out the hard way. We probably, did we source one? I think we co-sourced one deal. After doing the course with Jamie, that just opened my eyes up to so many other possibilities, and also another network, another community. Got to know Jamie quite well. And we have done a few, not as many as we wanted to, but as I say, the rent to rents really were draining, which had a big impact on my mental health. And then what with mentoring as well, Leanne working, we managed to get her down to 3 days a week. No, yeah, three days a week, which from she was in a massively stressful position. She was a manager for a large area and coming home crying all the time just due to the stress. So to get her down to 3 days a week, where she comes home now and I've got Leanne back. I've got that bubbly person. I haven't got a, which I didn't mind doing, but I haven't got a, hug her and console her every time she comes home because she's just like pulling her hair out. So it's really good to get her down to that. Obviously, the goal is to get her out completely, which will happen without a doubt. But yeah, we've started to get the traction back in relation to sourcing. Most people you probably see have got mailing lists for sources. I don't really like that idea personally. I think mailing lists are, we'll have to swear on this. Yeah.
Try not to make it too blue.
Okay. I think mailing lists are like throwing shit up a wall and hoping it sticks.
Yeah.
I really do. I prefer the route of getting to know an investor, actually understanding not only them as a person, but also their goals for the future, and also making sure that, we align, our values align, and it's more of a friendship, a business. Well, it's a business relationship, but I do like to make it into a friendship. And also you've got to be realistic in this market at the moment. There's so many investors I speak to and turn away, and they're after 25-30% return on cash employed, and so who isn't? So let's get realistic. But yeah, that's pretty much what we do, what we have done, and a little bit of the struggles we've had in relation to the rent to rents. I understand it's not a get rich quick scheme. This is get rich slow. There's a lot of learning involved. I mean, I've never done a business course. I've never been to university.
Yeah.
My GCSEs were shocking, but a lot of the big influential people, they dropped out of school.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with that. But yeah, there's a little bit of an insight there for you.
Okay, cool. Let me try and give everybody who's listening a bit of an overview. So when Phil talks about Jamie, he's referring to Jamie York. Now, I actually met Phil doing Jamie York and Dan Buchan's Aspire EPTA course. So if there's anybody out there who's interested in learning about deal packaging, sourcing, and getting a good overview of the basics of property investing, I would recommend having a look at their course. It's a really good course. So shout out there to Jamie and Dan. So let's rewind the clock a bit. So you started sourcing, you played it for a little bit, and then you did Jamie and Dan's course last August. When was it you actually got started in property?
Ooh, I was 26. I'm 32 in a week's time.
So you've been in and around the industry for about 6 years.
Roughly, yeah.
And initially, when you got started, what was going to be what was the goal? Were you starting off doing sourcing, or were you starting off looking for your own properties and then got into sourcing?
Yeah.
What was your idea?
We've followed the same path that a lot of people do follow. We follow the shiny penny. So whatever was the big hype back then, we latched onto pretty quickly because we were just naive. I mean, who isn't when they start out in anything?
Yeah.
We initially threw loads of money at education, which isn't a bad thing if you've got it. threw loads of money at education. We were going to do buy to lets, then realized, shit, we haven't got all that money. And the training that we didn't teach us how to, obtain investors. Then we went down the route of serviced accommodation, which every man and their dog was doing 4 years ago, because the industry was just pumping out so much marketing about it. It was crazy. So we tried that. We actually ran 2 units for 12 months. I didn't like that, just because I didn't see it as a property strategy. I saw it as I felt like Basil Fawlty, like, because I had a managing agent, but some things I had to do myself. So I just felt like I was running around like 40 towers sometimes. And we gave those up when the contract ended. Sometimes that was tough as well, because those were on guaranteed rent. So, and the trouble with SA, when you've only got 2 units and they're on guaranteed rent and they're 45 minutes away from your house, is every day you'd be checking your phone to see if you've got a booking, because at the end of the month you've got to pay that guaranteed rent. And when you're starting out in property, I didn't really like that aspect, which is, with the rent-to-rent HMOs we've got now, we know that pretty much guaranteed at the end of the month we've got the money to pay the landlord, or at least profit share with the landlord.
Sorry, mate. For anyone who's probably thinking, well, isn't that the same for rent to rent? You've got a slightly different model for rent to rent, which I'll loop back on. So if anybody's thinking that listening, just park that thought for a minute. Phil's got a really creative and unique model which kind of de-risks that guaranteed rent element, which I'll come back to in a minute. So sorry.
There's 3 models which I can go through. I use a slightly different model, which gets you more money, but you've got to find the right landlord. We really did just chase the shiny penny, and it can take you a while. I mean, now looking back, because I'm a mentor now, you think, well, why didn't you tell yourself? Why didn't you have a little mentoring session in your own head?
Yeah.
But that clearly didn't happen. So you end up chasing your tail, wondering why things aren't working, until you realize that you've got to be persistent. You've got to keep showing up, keep going to these networking events, keep putting in the work. I mean, you've got a successful business there, Sam, and you know that it takes hard graft. I've watched from the sidelines, you going from where we first met, and then you've moved into a bigger office, and then you're taking on more staff, and then you're buying all these gadgets, which are useful. Like the 360 cameras you've got and what have you. But it's all about reinvesting into your business, which you've been doing. I haven't seen you flashing Rolexes or getting Lamborghinis, or do you know what I mean? I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass. You're just a genuine guy, and you're working hard, mate, and it's good to see.
Yeah, good stuff. So what would you say 6 years ago was the sort of the shiny penny then? Was that, because for me it was HMOs were the kind of the big thing, and then everyone went from HMOs and everyone went into service accommodation. That was the big thing, and now it seems to be social housing. So what we've been doing is we've looked at HMOs and we've gone, right, well, forget it being a get rich quick scheme. Let's look about how we can do it right, and we've nailed it now. To be fair, our HMO model is pretty much bulletproof, and we don't get any of the headaches and any of the stresses. And we're now looking at service accommodation. So I guess there'll be an element of being Basil Fawlty and running around. But the idea is to look at the model and to do it properly instead of trying to take shortcuts. So what was it 6 years ago when you joined in? Was it the serviced accommodation that was the big buzzword?
Yeah, that was just everywhere. As I say, everyone was just getting into a serviced accommodation, and going back to the element of me not wanting to let go.
Yeah,
that probably hampered some element of that. But to get those 2 units, I had to call 60 people.
Yeah.
With a 1-year-old at home, so I was doing the calls while he was sleeping.
Sometimes people will hold on to something that's a negative, and I can't remember what it's called. It's the fallacy. I can't remember what the fallacy is now. Like holding on to a toxic relationship because you don't want to let it go. I'll have to look it up. But also, when you've invested, is it the sunk something fallacy?
I know what you mean.
When you've
I know
already committed to something, you stick with it.
because you've invested your time and your energy and your emotions.
And people always say never quit. You should never quit. My advice to anyone listening to this is know when to quit.
Yeah.
I've quit loads of stuff in my life. I've quit landlords. I've quit businesses. When it's not working, quit and do something else. Move your money from something that's not working to something that does work. Move your time into something that isn't working into something that works. But also, you've got to remember there's a few extra forces at play. So you've got money, you've got time, but you've also got stress, hassle, mental health, and enjoyment. If you're not enjoying something, get rid of it and move on to something you are enjoying and learn how to monetize it. So from joining the industry, from doing your training, from your rent to rents, your service accommodation, at what point did you think sourcing or deal packaging was something you wanted to give it a go?
It's a lot more than just the sourcing. It was more about increasing the options or increasing the choices for exits. So when someone is new to the property industry and they go to view a property, or if they're not in the property industry and they go to view, their only option in their head is, can I buy this house? And 9 times out of 10, if they haven't got the money, it's going to be no. Whereas, sourcing, deal packaging, property trading, there's lots of different words for it now. It gives you those choices, gives you those options, the exit strategies. That's more the reason that I did it, to provide more tools in the toolbox. The mastermind that I'm a mentor on is the No Money Down mastermind, and that'll be another discussion because there's going to be so many people saying there's No Money Down doesn't exist. It's a name of a course. It really means other people's money or very little money down, but that doesn't really sell courses, does it? So
Yeah.
I've got all of those tools in the toolbox, such as, lease options, assisted sales, exchange for delays, completions, vendor finance, rent to rent, all these ways of acquiring or controlling property. And then I saw that deal packaging, sourcing, property trading as another avenue as well. So it just gives me how many strings to the bow do you want? Well, I want as many as possible.
Yeah.
So I've got as many exit strategies. That's the reason I got into it. The other reason was more to do with the individual. I knew that Jamie was the person. I just knew it from day one when he put the first post out, and the post was something a little bit like this. It was, you won't make any money in the first 6 months. You'll probably cry in the first 6 months. This is what I'm going to do. Who wants in? And I was the first ever person to sign up. And when he phoned me, it was like, I said, I don't care what you're selling, but I'm buying it because I believe in you.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have just done it with anyone. It happened at the right time.
Yeah. That's good. And I like what you're saying there, because all too often you see people who are relatively new to the industry who are like, this is what I do. I'm viewing rent to rents, or I'm viewing HMOs or whatever. And when you get to know people who have done well in the industry, you realize that they have a portfolio of many different things. So rather than going to a house and going, right, I'm doing lease options, does this work as a lease option? They view the house and they go, right, what's my exit for this? Well, this one doesn't work as a lease option. Would it work as a rent to rent? Can I put it on a management agreement? Can I buy it and flip it? So you then look at each property in its individual merits and think, what strategy fits this property? And when you start to think like that, you can basically look at any property and make a deal from it. And that's what I like about sourcing, was if you get it right, everything becomes a deal. If you've got the right investors or if you've got the right strategy, every single property is a deal.
Yeah, I want to add something to that as well. A lot of people, they'll go into, or they'll go on a viewing, or they'll analyze a property, and I'll speak to them, and they know nothing about the vendor, they know nothing about the situation, and I don't care. When I walk into a property, I do not care about the property. I'm focusing 100% on the vendor situation. Because if you focus too much on the property, like, no one cares about the property. It's all about the vendor situation. If they're in a certain situation, then a lease option is not going to work, and you're going to be going in there pitching a lease option, and it's not even going to fit their situation. So just get out of your own way. Forget about the house. Obviously, don't forget about it, but focus most of your attention on the homeowner, because people buy and sell from people. And if you're just walking in there with a clipboard looking at the house and don't give a shit about them, they're just gonna not warm to you. So that's a big one. The other one, don't focus on the asking price. Asking price got nothing to do with anything. Your figures are your figures, and your figures will always work depending on the situation of the vendor.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
thought I'd add that in.
Yeah, exactly. You should pay what it's worth, and if the vendor accepts it, they accept it. If they don't, they don't. I always try and think of ways of giving them what they want and making it work, because then you get more of a win-win. If you're just going around offering everybody 20-30% below market value, you're only going to do a small amount of deals in real terms. So you made a good point there about property. It's a people business. It's not about property, it's about people. So talking about people, the makeup of your business then is you yourself working full time. And as you mentioned earlier, your business partner is Leanne, who is working in the NHS. Is she a nurse? Is that right?
She's a carer for a private care company. She has been in the care industry probably 14, 15 years, I think.
Yeah.
She was predominantly a manager down in Weymouth. Now she's gone back to being a carer because there's very little stress in it, but she looks after people with severe disabilities.
Okay. And she was working full time, and now she's down to 3 days a week.
Yeah, well, she was working more than full time. She was working double time because being a manager. But yeah, down to 3 days a week. Comes home, no stress. Yeah, a lot better. In terms of when she comes home now, she's happy. She's not crying her eyes out like she was. Yeah, I didn't like that part.
Yeah. So I imagine if she's working in such a stressful job and working a lot of hours, it means she physically isn't going to be there mentally or physically to do much on the property side. Have you got any staff, or is it just the two?
No, that's probably the one sort of thing that I need to sort of get out of my own way and just let go a little bit, which is the reason I had that meeting with that outsourcing, the owner of the outsourcing business. But a lot of people do what I'm doing and hold on to control for too long. But it's just a mindset thing.
Okay, so we basically got you working full time, Leanne doing what she can, getting involved where she can around a stressful job. You built a portfolio of 7 rent to rents. You were looking at serviced accommodation. You were doing deal packaging. Was there anything else you were doing? Because obviously you got involved with Progressive and started mentoring through them. So what else were you doing then? That's kind of all on your shoulders.
Yeah, so I was mentoring, and still am mentoring at Progressive on the Numbly Down Mastermind, and then they asked me to be like not a fully fledged trainer, but they asked me to, during the course for the Numbly Down course, they asked me to deliver some content slots. So it's kind of like an assistant trainer, and I was probably at Progressive. This is recent. I was probably at Progressive for about, if it was a double month where they run 2 courses plus the mentoring, I was probably there for about 14, 15 days in the month, which is quite a lot because I live 4 hours away from Progressive.
Yeah.
So that's a long drive. Obviously we've got Vinny, our son, so he misses me when I'm away. Whenever if I get a bag, right, and go near the door, he says, "Daddy, are you going away?" I'm like, so, so 14 days up to, it was taking me out of my home and the business as well. So it come to a point, and if you'd got me on social media, you'd have seen this, come to a point about a month ago. I was driving home after doing a 7-day stint at Progressive, and even though I'm quite comfortable standing on stage doing these videos, with the podcast and what have you, and talking to vendors, I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert and an extrovert, which really annoys me. So if I'm in social situations for too long, or the level of interaction is too much for too long, my energy levels just drain really, really quickly. So for 7 days, it was non-stop from 8 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the evening, because you go out afterwards as well for dinner. And, because you're a mentor and, an assistant trainer or consultant at Progressive, obviously people want to talk to you. Of course they do. And I'm cool with that. So throughout that whole 7-day period, my energy levels are draining, whilst in the background, I've got HMO, which was causing a massive loads of issues. Couple that with other sort of personal things going on with my other son, then, mental health is like a glass. That glass is your head, and the liquid inside is all of the stress and what have you. And if you just keep pouring that water or that stress into the glass or your head, it's going to overflow eventually. And that's where I was getting to. So, you've got all of the personal things going on. Leanne's suffering with pains in the shoulder at the moment. And obviously I'm worrying about that. It's been ongoing for a while and they can't diagnose it at the moment. So that's in the back of my head. I've got a rent-to-rent HMO causing issues. I've got, me driving, 8 hours, there.
Right.
I've got all of the other stuff. I've got my energy levels going down. I was worried about my mom as well. She lives in Birmingham. She was going through a bit of a depressed stage as well. I mean, it was literally one thing. And I'm not inviting you all to a pity party here. This is just me telling you exactly what it was. I mean, there's so many people out there with more problems than me. But anyway, they were just mounting on top of each other. And I was driving home from doing the 7-day stint at Progressive. My energy levels had just hit the floor, and I just broke down in the car. Just while I was driving, I was about 2 hours away from home, and I just broke down. Literally, just broke down. And it was getting late. I think it was about 10:30. So I pulled over and I texted Leanne and I said, "Please don't go to bed. I need to speak to you," because I knew that if I'd have got home and she was in bed, I'd have gone to bed myself, woke up tomorrow, and I'd have acted normally. I'd have pushed it to the back of my head, and this needed to come out. I needed her to know what was going on. Anyway, so I pretty much got home, broke down, threw my arms around her. We had a good chat. And then for the next month-ish, my head was a massive fog.
Yeah.
It really was, and it was one of them things I didn't know how long it was going to take to get out. And that was frustrating for me. I was like, because sometimes we all have these blips. I used to have them once every 3 months where I'd wake up one day, feel like shit. I'd text Leanne going, "I'm having a shit day." Next day, I'll be sound. I'll be completely fine. But this was different. I knew it was, because it just affected me differently. And that was the frustrating thing. I didn't know how long it was going to take. And then, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago. About a month ago. I remember waking up one day and just thinking, I'm nearly back. I'm nearly back to normal. There was just something. It was really weird, and it made me so happy. Like, I was like, I can't believe I didn't know how long it was going to take, and now I'm kind of feeling back to normal. I reached out during this period. I reached out to all my JV partners. I reached out to Jamie, because I do some work with Jamie. I just reached out to everyone who needed to know and just went, "Look, this is what's happened. It's going to take me a bit of time. Bear with me." And they were all really supportive.
Yeah. Do you think you were taking on too much? Because from talking to you, and I'm sure people listening will be like, "Wow, this guy's dealing with so much and doing so much all on his own.
Yeah.
Plus, he's giving away 50% of his time to this mentoring." Do you think you were doing too much?
I do, yeah. I do think I was doing too much. I wasn't. I'm a typical. I don't want to make a stereotype, but I'm a typical bloke. I'll just push sweep things under the carpet if it's to do with like struggling. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm the first one to put my hands up and say, look, I am struggling, but I'm also I'm a people pleaser. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, no worries. Because I've always had the thing of say yes and then work out how to do it afterwards. Um, I'm getting a little bit better at saying no now. Um, I've had to. I've just had to.
Learning to say no and turning business away was probably the defining moment in my entire career, because I would always say yes to everything, but not all business is good business.
No.
And I come from I did A level in business studies, and one of the things we talked about was opportunity cost. And sometimes by you saying yes to this opportunity means you won't be able to take an opportunity tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so I've just, I'm very set. I've got like a few golden rules in my business, and one is don't work with dickheads. So if a landlord doesn't share the same values as we do, we don't work with them. If we've got a tenant who's not right, we won't move forward with them. We don't want to work with certain contractors if they behave in a certain way. We want people to be a bit more professional. And staff, I only want to work with the right kind of people. And if you get those four things right, then better things happen. If people don't appreciate your value, or they don't appreciate what you do, and they're a bit too selfish and they don't think communally, then they're kind of not right for me. And I used to like a challenge. I used to like solving problems. So I'd see problem properties as being a bit of a challenge. I don't anymore. One of the reasons I wanted to do sourcing was because I want to make sure that we're in control of the property so that when we go to rent it, it's done right.
Mm.
I'm almost at the point now where if a landlord came to me and said, I've got HMO, will you manage it? I'd probably say no. Unless I've refurbed it and I know it's been done right, I can't be bothered, because I know what will happen. You'll have cut corners, you'll have made bad decisions, and now we're going to be stuck with it. And unless you're thinking about the end result and the end consumer, and you think like I do about it's got to be top quality, it's got to be done right, it's got to be a home where tenants walk in and they go, yes, this is the nuts, I want to live here forever, and show off to their friends. If they're not thinking that about your property, then you're just going to have problems
Yeah.
in one shape or another. So I think saying no is, it's a really pivotal part of your experience. So kudos to you for recognizing that. Now, I know that when before we started recording this, we had a sort of quick conversation, and you were saying that now, since you had that moment in the car, you've kind of scaled a few things back, or you've changed a few things. So from going from taking everything on and wanting to do everything on your own and overwhelming yourself and kind of having a breakdown, how have you scaled that back to a more manageable level?
So I've just stopped the consulting on the course. I think that was coupled with the rent to rent HMO. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I've also the house in question. It was kind of all of the individuals in the property. Well, there's probably three, but he put them all together and they were just carnage. So I've evicted the whole house. That was the best thing to happen to change the demographic of individual.
Yeah.
So the demographic of that individual. I do work with a charity. Oh, just to add something else, I've been asked to go onto a panel with the council.
Right.
So yeah, I probably will say yes to that because it'll be a small commitment. Anyway, it's in relation to homelessness and housing in the area. I work with a charity which does a lot of work with vulnerable people and ex-drug addicts, ex-alcoholics, homeless people, what have you. And I interview people for rooms. Now, a lot of people, and I've seen it all over, will say straight away, do not do that demographic because it is a nightmare. Yes, it is. It can be. without the right structure in place. But I used to fit into that demographic. I was a drug addict, and there's no one out there in my area that also does what I do. And I know that because the charity I work with and housing options have said that to me. There's one other landlord out of, I mean, how many landlords are in Swansea? There's going to be thousands. There's about 2,000 HMOs, but it was something for me to give back. I think looking back now, would I have put more structure in place? Potentially, yes, I would have.
You make all your rent-to-rent rooms available to vulnerable adults, or was this just this one house that you did this with?
No, so I've got I did have 3 houses which we were running with the charity.
Yeah.
I've just evicted the one, and that's going to go back to professionals. And then I've got another 2 which are, fingers crossed, they're stable at the moment. We haven't had, I don't really hear from them, to be honest, which is cool. I pop in every week just into the communal areas. I'm in the area. They're all the houses are about a 5 to 10 minute walk in distance. They're really close to each other. So for me to pop into 7 houses is nothing. And again, I like that element of control, which is, I need to stop it. I know you're looking at me, Sam, going, you need to stop this. But I like popping in and just putting my head in, going, yeah, everything's sound. Because you'll be surprised. Well, you probably won't be. Some tenants, if the Wi-Fi goes off, right, straight on the phone, if the ceiling's fallen down, they won't tell you. Like, so I like to pop in just to see that everything's cool. I think
anybody looking at managing HMOs, whether it's rents or through an agent or anything, they need to be inspected at least once a month internally.
Yeah.
Make sure that the people who are meant to be living there are living there, to make sure that the condition of the property is being looked after. But like you say, to pick up on the little things. If there's a slight leak coming from upstairs, that can become a big problem. So you want to get there early. So my advice to you as a HMO managing specialist is make sure it doesn't have to be you, Phil. It can be someone that works for you.
Yeah.
You can scale that. You can't scale yourself.
Yeah.
But you can scale your ability to manage other people who do things for you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick on you a little bit. And the reason I'm going to pick on you is because everything is your fault, right? Anything that's wrong in your property business is your fault. So that rent to rent that went wrong, how did you get it wrong? What did you do wrong?
Oh, by the way, before we go any further, I massively subscribe to that. Things don't happen to you; they happen because of you.
Yeah.
Well, the actual bit from the book is take responsibility, don't be a little bitch.
Which book is that?
10x,
Okay.
Grant Cardone. So yeah, the way that I got it wrong. It was okay. Let's break the situation down and then look at where I got it wrong. Someone actually passed away in the house. They died.
Right.
From an overdose. Now, the person's partner was also living in the house. Now you can imagine what that would do to a house of people. They all just, and bearing in mind they're ex drug addicts and alcoholics and what have you.
Yeah.
So that's a massive amount of stress just hit them on their doorstep. A lot of them reverted to type in relation to their past, started drinking more, what have you. Where did I go wrong? I do think I should have put more or worked with the charity more to structure the house a little bit differently. I've been speaking with a local councillor, and they actually want me to join another panel as well. That's 2 bloody panels. Anyway, we were talking about the aspects of of what I'm doing in relation to the ex drug addicts and what have you. Oh, my laptop is going to die. I didn't even bring it. 1 second. Stop there. My laptop's going to die.
I'll just pause it. Hang on. Took a little pit stop there to get a laptop charger, but we're back in the room.
So, yeah, in relation to where I went wrong with what my wife does, there's some houses where they'll have their own bedroom, and then there'll be an office or a dedicated room for the support workers. I'm out of breath now. I had to run all the way down the stairs to get a charger. Right. So I need to get back to the gym. That's another thing to add to my list.
Do you need me to fix it for a second?
So what I think should have happened is, and again, this is going to come down to, is it feasible for these charities and for the council to have these houses, and then one of the rooms is a dedicated support room, where someone pops in, does some workshops with individuals. And I was speaking to the councillor about a week ago, and that's what they're proposing, and they'd like my help with it. And also this charity with the other panel, they want my help to make the system better, which I know that it's the best thing, but I also know I'm going to be so frustrated at the speed of the implementation because, I come from a corporate background, worked at a large bank, and everything had to go through these bloody meetings just to change the color of a pen. Do you know what I mean? Like the smallest things. So I know that I'll join it, and the speed of implementation will annoy me. It really will, but it is what it is.
One thing you should consider is to overcome a lot of the humps that you've experienced and to take things to the next level. Invariably, you're going to need to build a team. And whether that's a team of virtual assistants or a team of staff, I'm a massive fan of staff. Can't get my head around virtual assistants. I like having a team of people in the office that we all work together. You're going to need to have a team, right? And you're going to need to look after that team. Now, I don't really like doing social housing. And the reason I don't like doing social housing is I don't like people being abusive to my staff. And I don't like to have those conversations with people who are angry and aggressive, because my staff don't deserve that. Now, from an altruistic point of view, we all want to give back and we want to do stuff like that. And that's great. But me personally, I don't want to spend my day to day with people who are going to threaten to smash my head in because they don't get their own way. And it happens. We've got one building where we've inherited people who are all on housing benefit. And we've had more problems with that one building than anywhere else put together. And we've had to evict half the tenants and start again. So I make no secret of the fact that we are a professional property company and we look for professional tenants. And that's because I want to have a better experience in my day. There are charities and governments and whatnot out there who can deal with the problems. That's not for me to deal with, to make the choices in my business. There are laws around not discriminating against people on housing benefit, and I'm all for that. I'm not saying we're discriminating against people on housing benefit. I just make sure that if we are going down that route, that we severely background check these people to make sure that they're the right kind of person. Their situation might be different, but as long as they're the right kind of person, we'll move forward with them. And as long as our landlord's interests are protected with guarantors, etc. So one thing just to be mindful is, and I know you came from having your own experiences, which we can go through in a minute if you like, and you want to give back because people either did or didn't help you when you were going through that experience. But just be careful that you don't commit yourself to doing all this stuff with charities and with drug addicts and recovering alcoholics, when in reality, me and you are probably not qualified or trained to be able to deal with all the stuff that goes with it. It's not as
yeah.
Just giving someone a room. You've got to give them the support.
Yeah, so with the charity that I work with, there was a very much a an agreement from the outset that I would deal with anything from a housing or landlord point of view. They would deal with things from a social point of view. And that has been maintained. Only where it got really bad with the one house was there a little bit of crossover. Um, yeah, and it does take it takes a certain type of person to
Mm.
be able to walk into a house um, where there's that demographic of individual. You don't know what mood they're in,
Yeah,
and not be afraid. um it yeah, it takes a certain type of person. You've either got to have been there
yeah,
um and know. I don't know. I know how to speak to different people
mm.
through, you know, whether it be a multimillionaire or a very successful individual, or whether it's someone who's pretty much on their arse.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that's a really, really important skill to try and learn, to try and, be able to actually talk to people on their level.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's not for everyone. Will I do more? No.
mm.
I've l- l- I've learned a lot, a hell of a lot,
Mm.
through doing the rent to rents, because I've got different demographics. I've got one house which is full of nurses.
Yeah,
I've got professionals and postgrads, and then I've got these two houses which are UC LHA tenants with additional requirements. But yeah,
mm.
I know that I'm not going to get more. I'm not going to get more involved
Yeah,
with the social aspects. My stance with the panel will be more of a, I can help you see both sides of the coin sort of thing,
yeah.
and just to
Perfect.
guide them.
So I've got two questions for you, Phil. The first question is regarding that specific house. We talked about what you got wrong. What have you what have you changed? What are you doing differently now to prevent those problems happening again with that specific property? How have you adapted?
Oh, okay. So I just evicted them. So I'm just changing the demographic. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Some of the individuals, well, sadly, one person passed away.
Yeah,
The other individual, he's moved out of area. Um, I managed to rehouse three people from that house,
yeah,
which I identified as the ones that weren't causing the issues.
yeah,
So I did manage to rehouse those into the other two houses, and they've been again, fingers crossed, touch wood, they've been fine at the moment. Um, but yeah, the ultimate thing was just evicting everyone.
So, am I right in thinking then it's about how you mix the tenants together? So those tenants in that bad house, actually in other houses with a different set of co-housemates, or have more cohesion. So the message there for anyone listening is the tenant, not necessarily the profile, but how they all mix together is super important.
Yeah, there was a lot of factors with this house, a hell of a lot of factors. When you've got someone whose partner's died in the house, their head's just gone, like bang, straight away.
Mm.
They used to have children. Obviously, they can't see them now due to what's going on in their lives. Again, I understand that. I've been through that. At one point, I didn't see my son for 2 years. Completely know what's going on in the head.
Yeah,
Um, so when you put all these factors in, and then you try and put everyone in a house where there's someone that's not stable, um, it is difficult. It really is difficult to know what to do. Um, but I've gone through that. I've learned a hell of a lot from it, and it is all about just getting that stable household, and placing the right people in it.
yeah,
That one house was a massive learning curve. Massive learning curve.
yeah. Because I always think the problem with HMOs is one bad tenant can get rid of four good ones. and that's what you want to avoid. So the other question I've got was, when we were doing this sort of brief chat before we came on air and started recording, you talked about your rent to rents causing you a lot of stress and a lot of struggles. So I know a lot of people out there see rent to rent as being quite a quick and easy way into the industry. And as someone who's done it yourself quite successfully, and and come under the cosh, talk to me about your struggles from rent to rent. Talk to me about what you found hard, or the sort of things that have happened that have just made life, harder for you.
Okay. Can I just say something uh, from what you just said? So a lot of people do see it as a beginner strategy or a starter strategy. It's far from it. There's so many regulations that go into HMOs, especially in my area. So for anyone in England, in Wales, you've got something called Rent Smart Wales,
Yeah.
which is an additional governing body which you've got to be part of, and you've actually got to be licensed as a letting agent as part of that. There's so many safety features that you've got to be on point with. You've got to do fire risk assessments. If there's no escape route at the back garden, then you can't have a fire exit sign pointing to the back garden. They've got to be pointing to the actual fire exit. You've got to have panels, interlinked smoke alarms. There's so many, emergency lighting. They've all got to be on point. They've all got to be inspected. And for someone to just come in off the back of a 2-day course and think that they could do it right, is well, I just don't think it's possible. There's a lot more that you need to know. Most courses out there will teach you the compliance that you need in relation to the ICO, which is the Information Commissioner's Office, all of the public indemnity and liability. That's cool. That kind of compliance is cool, but it doesn't make you aware of the safety requirements of a property.
Yeah.
That's something that's lacking. Walking in, I automatically know that the doors have got to be fire doors. They've got to have intermittent smoke seals around them. They've got to have 3 hinges. They've got to have thumb turns with door closures. That I've never seen that personally. I've never seen that said on a course. And if you're walking in, I walked into a house once and it had normal locks, like where you had to put the key in to
Yeah.
get out. And even I said to the landlord, I said that's wrong, and he was like, didn't care, just
Yeah.
didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a starter strategy. I really don't think it is. If you are going to go into it, please go in with your eyes open. Please do it right. It's not just cash flow. You're playing with people's lives.
Yeah.
From a safety aspect. Anyway, that's that bit. What did I do wrong? I didn't outsource quick enough. I always had in my head, I can't remember who said it, but I had in my head that if you go over 50 rooms, then get a member of staff. Which you may say otherwise, Sam, but I always had in my head, go over 50 rooms. I'm currently at about 36 rooms, so I still think that's manageable in my own head. So, yeah, I think the biggest one was getting too involved with the charity too soon, and trying to run.
Did that take you away then? Because obviously some of your houses are professional lets. Did you find getting involved with the charity meant you were kind of going off in one direction, you didn't have enough time for the other?
Yeah, because I felt like I was just putting out fires, not real ones, but there's something could happen, and like for one, I remember over Christmas it was really bad, and notoriously that is a bad time for people with additional needs. Christmas, it's just an emotional time. That really was draining for me because there was so much going on in a few houses, and one house in particular, I just felt like banging my head against a brick wall.
So you got 7 rent to rents, right? These problems all seem to loop back to the same thing. Now, were you having issues with the rent to rents with nurses in that we're all
No.
professionals? Cool. So basically, all your struggles for this part of the question relate to the struggles with that one house. It was Pareto's law.
In fact,
20% of your
yeah,
portfolio was causing you 80% of your problems.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Which is the old 80-20 rule, 80-20 rule. Which is why I knew that I had to. It couldn't carry on. When I had that breakdown, I just said to Leanne, right, I did actually say, and we do this. We do this as humans. I said to Leanne, I'm getting rid of every single HMO, and she went, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I went, right. I tell you what, let me sleep on it, and I'll come back to you tomorrow. Anyway, I slept on it, and I realised it's not all the HMOs. It's just that one, and it's not even the house. It's the people in the house.
Yeah.
So let's get rid of the people rather than getting rid of the HMOs. But we all do it. We see something bad and we go, no, just get rid of everything. That was quickly overturned in my head.
I think what would be really relevant to people listening who don't know you is to just touch on your background, because you've mentioned about being a drug addict. So is it true that you're actually homeless for a short while? So
Yeah, short period of time.
your experiences personally mirror the experiences of some of these people that you're trying to help. Hence the link. So just give us a very brief overview into what was going on in your life. When was this, and how did your mindset change to get you out of this to now becoming quite a successful property investor?
Yeah, cool. So so I started using drugs recreationally, as a lot of people do, at 18 years old. And then,
So I tell you what, let's go a bit deeper with this. What drugs were you taking? So was it smoking cannabis at 18, and how did that progress on to, to harder drugs?
yeah, I was, okay, let's go a little bit further back. In school, I was really, really skinny. I was obviously ginger, which didn't even help. I wasn't bullied. I wasn't bullied. I stood up for myself. I had two older brothers, which are about 25 years older than me. And my dad, well, my dad's my dad, but could he have been there a little bit more? Yeah, but he's old school. So like, I've never heard my dad say he loved me. To this day, he hasn't said, I'm proud of you for getting out of the hole anyway, that's another story. So one day I went to a pub and there was some old school friends there. These were the hard knocks of the school, so to speak. Now, the difference with, and I'll always defend them for this, the difference with these people is they weren't bullies. Yes, they were deemed as the hard knocks of the school. They wouldn't start things, but they would finish. And one of them's actually a professional boxer now. They would finish them. Anyway, we went to the pub. It was quite evident there was some drug use going on. It was also quite evident that the individuals which I later surrounded myself with were pretty dangerous. But again, and there was one individual in particular, he again didn't start things, and I always admired that about him. When you go into a pub and you think, well, you're a dick. You didn't get that vibe, but my God, if you crossed him or did something wrong, or anyway, I got into that sort of world, and it was a dangerous world. And I ended up being arrested for something I didn't do. There was about 30 of us at the time that were arrested for the same charge. And it was because I dropped someone off to that place. And it was probably the worst charge. I was actually arrested for murder at the age of 19. The first time I'd ever been arrested. So you can imagine, I was like, shit. And at the time I worked for a bank, and plainclothes police officers actually came into the bank, big headquarters in Birmingham, and took me out. I was like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, yeah, and the only reason they did that is because I was present at the place, and it was even on CCTV. I didn't even get out of my car, so how did I do that? Anyway, I was then subsequently afterwards, probably 6 months. Bearing in mind at this point, I'm 19 years old. I'm about 10 and a half stone. I'm nearly 14 stone now sitting here. So I was 10 and a half stone, really skinny. I was the weakest link of the group, or the group of people that were there, or at least the smallest. And it was someone gave an order to 5 people to break into my house while my mom was in downstairs and try and beat me up. So I they had baseball bats and metal koshes and what have you, and I just did what I could. Here's a funny story. I can laugh about it now. I was holding the door. I used to hold the door with my brother, just try and push the door and what have you. I'm holding this door to my bedroom because I've heard a lot of footsteps and I've heard my door go in, the front door. So I've run to the door. As they've tried to come into the door, I've closed it and then put my shoulder up against it. And I thought, shit, there's more than one person at the other side of that door. Anyway, I thought, here's a good idea. I'll run at my bedroom window, which was single glazed at that time. I'll smash through the window and I'll land on the garage roof. That would be a brilliant idea. Anyway, I completely missed the window and hit the fucking frame. I hit the window frame, bounced off it, went back onto my bed and just went like that. Anyway, all of the blows which were meant for my head hit my hand. So this hand, sometimes I'll experience pain in my wrist.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you know these guys? Were they part of your crew? Or
No, they were all in balaclavas.
So these were another crew, were they?
Yeah, there's yeah, I can talk to you about some of the elements.
Yeah.
If you want in person. But yeah, quite sensitive. There was another, basically someone else organized these other people with balaclavas to try and do me in, but all they got was my hand. God knows how. I just literally went like that, and all they did, as I say, this hand was like a balloon. That had a big effect. I do think that one incident is what led to quite a lot of things down the line. So,
what's that drug taking? What drugs was people taking at the time?
cocaine.
Right.
Yeah, that was the main one. You'd have MDMA, which MDMA.
It's more of the party drugs then, rather than sort of heroin and the hard.
Oh yeah, it wasn't. But again, like any drug's bad, but it wasn't the hard stuff. But again, that's like me saying, oh, it's not the hard stuff. But if someone's never taken drugs, any drug's the hard stuff. So, and again, when you're around that, and when I've got the past in that, like my past seems normal to me.
Yeah.
It seems ridiculously normal. Me sitting here going, oh, it's not the hard stuff. It is. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah.
I've never had any problems. Like I would never hold my hand up and say like I'm a drug addict or have any issues. But I think in my time I've probably taken enough drugs to kill a small elephant. So I don't go into this conversation naive. I live in Leeds. Leeds is one of the biggest party capitals in the UK, and sort of throughout the 2000s, 2010s, there was a few good nights out. Only really in the last few years have I grown up a little bit. So, I can resonate with that. Hence calling myself a sesh gremlin from time to time.
Sesh gremlin.
So how did that all? Do you know what's really interesting? You almost brushed it under the carpet about your dad. Dad doesn't tell me he loves me. Still not proud of me. For me, right? And anybody out there who understands trauma, that's it. That's the thing, right?
No, I've done. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've done a lot of at about 25. That started affecting me. No, actually, it wasn't 25. I was 22. Yeah, 22. That started affecting me really bad, and I actually went to get some counselling for that.
Mm,
About the fact of literally that about my dad and about not having many memories of him
mm,
doing stuff that I do now with Vinny, like playing football. I've never played football with my old man.
yeah.
With my mum, take me down the park. Yeah, so I've done a lot of delving into that in the past. I've kind of got over it.
Good.
It don't really bother me anymore.
So when did this escalate to you having this period of homeless then? I appreciate that I kind of said let's quickly go over it and we've gone deep, but I think
No
it's
worries.
interesting because I want people to know listening to this that you can get started from anywhere in property, no matter how down and out you think you are.
Yeah,
There's always someone worse off than you or someone better off than you, and there's nothing stopping you really.
yeah.
Um,
So okay, so let's go back to that bit again. So I was beaten up. Well, my hand was beaten up. Nothing
yeah,
else was. That created post-traumatic stress. I was sleeping fully clothed with boots on, with a knife under my pillow. Literally, that my knife would be in my hand and my head would be on the pillow.
yeah,
Um, just in case they came back. Because I was, as I say, I was really skinny, really skinny, and then I needed to do something, so I started going to the gym. And if anyone else is, skinny out there, you'll know you don't pack muscle on, no matter how much you eat. So I ended up taking steroids.
okay,
So I did about 3 courses of steroids, went from 10.5 stone to 12.5 stone in about a period of 3 months. So that was quick. I've still got stretch marks here.
right.
So I packed on like all up top here. I packed on a lot of mass
Looking pretty hench now, to be fair.
very quickly, very quickly, and that gave me a lot of confidence.
Right.
I needed that mentally more than physically. I haven't taken steroids since. I just knew that my body needed a kick up the arse because I'd been training for a long time and I just couldn't put anything on. Anyway, that's that. So after that happened, it it was I'd used drugs to try and self-medicate the PTSD, then got hooked on them. My relationship at the time fell apart. Then I wasn't able to see my son. Then I started using drugs more. Then I lost my job. Then I started using drugs more, and it got to a point where I owed someone a substantial amount of money, and the individual at the time was known for carrying weapons, and I knew at that point I needed to get out of the area because I couldn't pay them back. And this is why, like, and I phoned my dad because he didn't live in the area, and I said, and again, this is another thing. Do I love my dad? Yes. Is he a twat sometimes? Yes. But does he love me deep down? Of course he does, because he come and got me. So I phoned him. I said, Dad, you've got to get me out of the area. I explained within a couple of hours he was at the house. We packed everything into his car, and I just got out of the area. Yeah, if I'd have stayed there, I'd either be dead now or in prison. So yeah, I went to Wales, started working, and then met Leanne online. She lived in Bath, and she came to Wales, and 3 months. Within 3 months, I phoned Leanne and said, "Right, I've had enough of Wales. I've had enough of this shit job. I'm moving in with you." And she went, "All right, yeah, okay, no worries." So anyway, she come and pick me up, and I moved down to Bath. I had a few different jobs down there. There was a 360 operator, which to anyone else is just a digger. Dumper truck, big dumper truck driver. And what else have I done? Worked in a call center. I was building festivals for stages.
Yeah.
You know, the big stages at festivals. So we were
big
building those all over, the main stages and stuff like that. We were building those all over the country. Did some work with their dad, because my brother's a general builder, so I'm pretty good at turning my hand to most things. And then one day, well, actually, no, it wasn't one day. From the start, roughly, of the relationship, I was always talking to Leanne about property. And I just kept, I knew about lease options when I was 14 years old. My brother told me about them at 14 years old. There's two guys who are still going. I think it's John. Is it John and Vincent now in Milton Keynes? And they used to do a lot of stuff on lease options. So I knew about them. Anyway, I'm telling Leanne about what I know about lease options and things like that. And she comes from an old farming background. Her family used to own a lot of the land around Cheddar Gorge. So they're old school farmers, generational wealth, keeping the money in chimneys and under floorboards. They don't like all of this. None of them have got mortgages. They don't like mortgages. They don't trust banks. So trying to get through to Leanne was trying to get through the brainwashing of her upbringing.
Yeah.
She didn't believe me. And I said, right, okay, no worries. So I said, right, go to Progressive for 3-day multiple streams. And if they can't convince you that property is the right thing to get into and that there are these different ways, they can't convince you, I'll shut up about it. Anyway, she goes off to multiple streams, and she phones me on the last day saying, which course shall I buy? So I thought, great, they've worked their magic. So I said, right, hang on a minute, don't buy anything. So that's pretty much what happened from that's pretty much
The only part of the story missing is the homeless bit. So when was that?
Oh, right, okay, yeah. So
first left Birmingham.
Yeah. So I have slept on the streets quite a number of times.
Is this in Birmingham?
Yeah, and in other parts, like I've Evesham, which is not far from Birmingham. That was for a short period of time.
Okay.
I also used to go off, like I'd run away. I'd get quite a large amount of drugs, and I'd start taking them. Then I'd get paranoid. Then I'd be like, shit, if I go home, people will know that I've been taking drugs. Shit, what do? Just run. So then I'd go. I ended up in Cornwall the once. Crazy. And I just, obviously, it's now looking back, I was an absolute idiot because I was scaring all my family. But what I will say is it's really, really crazy what your mind can do to you and play tricks on you.
Yeah.
It's so scary. I've been in a state of paranoia whereby I've barricaded myself in a property. Literally, I've barricaded it. I've even nearly jumped out of a second story window.
Right.
Because I thought someone was coming through the front door.
Yeah.
Like, and I forgot about that. I did actually spend a week in a psychiatric ward it was a secure building, like I couldn't get out. I thought about it. I thought about climbing the wall. It was bloody high, but yeah, I spent a week in that was due to drug induced paranoia. That was an eye opener. As soon as the drugs wore off, because cocaine doesn't stay in your system that long. As soon as the drugs wore off, I was like, shit, I shouldn't be here. Looking around, and there was some seriously ill people there mentally. I was like, Jesus, I should not be here. But at that point, I needed to be. It's some of the shit that's gone through my head, like for the paranoia. It's not normal to try and jump out of a 2-story window.
Yeah, certainly. I think, we've obviously gone probably a bit deeper into that than I'd intended, which I think, do you know what, it was flowing. And I think that the listeners will probably appreciate that because it really gives you a picture as to why Phil has taken the view that he has with his own property business in wanting to help people. And I hope it gives people an understanding of why he's got involved with the charity and, tried to help those vulnerable adults because he himself has been vulnerable. So there's a couple of lessons there in terms of how can you send the lift back down to other people to help other people who are in a situation that you might have been in, but also that no matter how low you think you are, you're never down and out. And we've talked quite a lot in this interview about problems and struggles and things that have gone wrong. And I don't want to just focus on the negative. I think it's good that people know that it's not easy and then it's not a straight line. There's ups and downs. But what I want to know now, Phil, because obviously you're doing really well. Progressive would not have invited you on to mentor on their No Money Down course and become one of their mentors, and present on the courses if they didn't value what you contributed. So, what are you getting right at the minute, and what's going well that you can share with the audience?
Do you know what? I think it's just being authentic. There's so many fake people out there, and it's just actually being a decent human being. I mean, with the age of social media, it's making me sound old now. With the age of social media, it's highlighted or helped highlight just how many arseholes are out there.
Right.
I think the best thing you can do is just be authentic, just be decent, just like it's not hard, is it really? But I've met so many people that I just wouldn't do business with because there's something about them. Like I met you, Sam. I've been to your house. Uh, you know, I know you're a decent guy. I know you're a decent guy. Um, the other people that Daniel, met him. Daniel Lear, met him, decent guy. Jamie, Dan, Sam, all the other people in my network. I'm really, really quick as well to cut people out, like unbelievably quick. Like I'm so ruthless.
Yeah.
Like some family members and Leanne's looking at me like, can you really do that? I'm like, yeah, just cut them out. I'll block people's number. I don't care. Because if you're not adding something to me or my journey, you're taking away. So I'd say that the thing I'm doing right at the moment is taking account of my mental health and physical health, making sure that what I'm doing is going to be in line with that, and also aligning myself with the right people. Just like a HMO where you've got one bad tenant that could bring the house down. If you're aligned with the wrong people in this industry, you'll get a bad name really quickly.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to align myself with the right people and just give as much content and value as I can. I used to put out at least 4 live videos a day, loads of content, and then my mental health went down. And if you look back, it directly correlates with when that happened. I was struggling for 4 months, and I bet I didn't post anything in those 4 months. I bet you if I look back now, there's nothing there. Yeah. And now, I've scaled back a little bit, but to move forward. So, we've got yesterday I was, creating this studio where we're sitting now, just putting it all together. I mean, I can still see some bits here need painting because I literally did them yesterday. You can just see a little bit. It's had about 2 coats, needs 1 more. I hung that TV last night. So I'm creating a YouTube studio because I want to help people. I want to deliver. It goes with the podcast as well. I just want to help deliver content to people so that they can realize that something is possible. My story, it resonates with people. If I can go what I've gone through and come out the other end and be where I am now, then what's stopping someone else with what's deemed a normal life, whatever that is, go forward and start in property. So
good. Just summarize for me as well. I mentioned it earlier on. One of the things you're known for is your rent to rent, and I know you're saying you've had struggles with your rent to rent, but you've actually done really well at it, and you're someone who, if anybody out there is wanting to rent to rents, could learn a lot from. you've got the unique model which kind of de-risks the whole guaranteed rent. So just very quickly summarize how your model works and how you take away that kind of panic of thinking, oh God, how am I going to be able to pay the rent each month?
Cool. Do you want me to go through guaranteed rent model and then the other ones first?
Yeah.
Cool. So for anyone out there who doesn't know about guaranteed rent or rent-to-rent HMOs, what would happen is, let's say you've got a 5-bed HMO and the rooms are £500 per calendar month. Okay, so what you would do is you would work out the what's known as the 1.5 rule. So the 1.5 rule is securing your profit first up front. So that means that if you have got one room empty, your profit is one room plus another half. So on the example we're talking about here, where the rooms are £500, your profit's going to be £750. So you've got the 500 and then half of that. So you got 750. You would then take, you would actually have the bills as well. You would pay for the bills in this guaranteed rent scenario. You'd end up paying the landlord. Okay, so you got 5. You'd end up paying the landlord roughly one second. This is where not having, because I've got a book with all of these written down. Plus,
Yeah.
Sam, can you guess what I got in GCSE maths, mate?
D.
A D?
No.
Nah.
An A.
No.
An E.
I got a U, mate.
Oh no.
What is a U?
Ungradable, I think.
So anyway, you'd end up paying the landlord £1,250. Okay, guaranteed rent. Now, how many of you out there could sustain, if the property was empty, not only paying £1,250 in guaranteed rent, but also a further £500 roughly in bills a month? Not a lot of people could sustain that from their business bank account or even their personal overflow funds that they've got a month. That's where guaranteed rent starts to get you into squeaky bum mode.
High risk. There's a lot.
Sorry?
High risk. There's a lot at stake.
Yeah, there is a lot. So there's 2 other ways of doing it. Both of them are called profit share, and there's 2 ways of doing profit share. I'll teach you both, but let's do the first one. The first one is how most education providers teach it. So what will happen is, again, firstly, you'll work out the profit that you want to earn. So we'll do the same thing, 5-bed, and it's £500 per calendar month.
Yeah.
So Sam, how much would you be willing to, how much would you like risk-free? Are you happy with £500 per calendar month risk-free? Are you happy? Yeah, so let's say £500. So what you do is, and see, I should have had a table really. It's really easy to show on a table. You've got room 1, room 2, room 3. Okay, so the income from room 1's 500. That £500 goes straight to the landlord. Room 2, straight to the landlord. Room 3, straight to the landlord. Room 4 is different. 250 of that goes to the landlord. 250 of that goes to you. Room 5, 250 of that goes to the landlord, and 250 goes to you. So you only earn the full £500 once the property is full. This not only incentivizes you, but it also gives the landlord confidence that it incentivizes you to fill the property. Now, with this model, the bills remain in the landlord's name. If it's a 5-bed, it used to be pre-hike. It used to be £500 for the property that we would offer. That's gone up now because of the electricity and gas increases. So that's one way of doing it. My way of doing it is a little bit different, and this is going to depend on the landlord that you're speaking to. So let's take the same property, 5-bed, £500, and the total is 2.5 grand. We take off the 500 for bills, which still remain in the landlord's name. That leaves £2,000. Agreed?
Yeah.
Then split that down the middle. You get £1,000, landlords get £1,000, and the £500 for the bills.
So how does that work if there's only 3 rooms filled? Do you just split everything down the middle after the first 500?
Yeah.
And that's how you do it?
Yeah.
So it's almost a joint venture as well as a guaranteed rent?
Yeah, well, no, I'm not guaranteeing anything.
Oh,
There's no guarantee. If the property is completely empty, then there's nothing. The agreement is the landlord gets the first £500 or however much, for I've got a 6-bed.
yeah.
So for instance, I've got the one with the nurses, which is a 6-bed. And the total income's £2,880. So we give the landlord £600 a month. That leaves us with 1,140, and the landlord with £1,140. And they're cool with that. I'm cool with that. How much is a typical buy-to-let in your area kicking out net profit a month? £300.
Yeah, 300 is good.
And how much have you got to put into that?
Well, if you buy it quite a lot, because you've got to put deposit.
20 grand.
Well, more than that, I would say 30, 35.
So 35 grand to earn £300 a month net.
Yeah.
Or we put about 1.5 grand into this property to earn nearly £1,140 a month. And it's not even my house.
Yeah.
Now, the difference with the profit share models, and this is where you got to think on your toes, is how motivated is the landlord. I'm not out there to rip people off. You might think, well, Phil, hang on a minute. You're taking £1 grand from someone's house and they're happy with it. They are happy with the service I provide.
Yeah.
If they said, no, I'm not happy with that, cool, I'll work out a different model. I'll flip over to the other model. So yeah, I mean, you just got to ask yourself, what do you want to earn risk-free?
Yeah.
£1,000 a month risk-free is not bad. £500 a month risk-free, that's not bad. Even £300 a month risk-free is not bad. But you just got to value your time and your service.
Some absolute nuggets there for people wanting to do rent to rents. So Phil, we've been going on for quite a while, so I'm going to have to wrap this up soon. I just want to ask you, before I ask for all your contact information, how people can get hold of you, is what does the future hold for you then? What's next? What are you planning to do? What deals have you got in the pipeline?
So we've got the YouTube channel, which will be launching soon once I've painted this bloody wall. We are looking at doing some, I can't tell you too much. We are looking at doing some business abroad. That's going to be exciting. And I've got multiple joint ventures that are going to take place. I've got one at the moment. We had a meeting. Do you know what? I do want to continue mentoring. I will mentor for another person as well. As far as deals are concerned at the moment, as I say, I scale back. We've got nothing at the moment in the pipeline. We are pushing forward, looking for investors, realistic investors that are looking for, 8%, up to 12% return on cash employed, which is more realistic in today's market. And I don't like pigeonholing myself in relation to what does the future look like.
Yeah.
Because if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, I would not think I would be where I am now. What I like doing is saying yes to a lot of things to create a lot of problems, a lot of good problems, and allow opportunity to happen. That's what I like, because it brings that level of uncertainty, and I like uncertainty to a degree,
Yeah,
especially when it's about opportunity.
it's exciting, isn't it? So, Phil, if people want to get hold of you, where do they find you?
Facebook, really, Facebook's probably the best one. We've got the podcast, which is the Diligent Endeavors podcast. I've only done 2 episodes, and then my mental health went, which is why I stopped. But that is going to be starting again. We've got the website, LPB Property Investments. But yeah, just Facebook's the easiest one.
And where do you operate then? Because if people are wanting to work with you on a sourcing basis or do joint ventures, is it Swansea, you said, and South
Yeah,
Wales?
yeah, Swansea, South Wales. If you do want to look at purchasing property, get in touch with me. We can set up a Zoom, and we'll go through your requirements. Again, if I think we're the right fit to work with, that's more important to me than a sourcing fee. I've turned down so many people in the past that just are unrealistic, or we're just not going to gel, and that's cool with me.
I think this is probably an opportune moment to just plug my mentorship program, Investor-Led Sourcing, where I teach other sourcing agents how to recruit investors, how to work with the right investors, like Phil was just saying, and how to get your sourcing business scalable, making more money, and being more pleasurable. So if you're interested in sourcing and you want to speak to me about coming on my Investor-Led Sourcing course, just give me a shout. I can run through that with you. Phil, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on, talking all things property, all things people, all things personal. Got warts and all. Really feel like we got under the bonnet, got to know you, and I'm looking forward to watching you flourish, develop, and roll out all these wonderful new projects over the next few months.
Cool, man. Been really really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed it, and the same again. Just watching your business and your social media continue to grow. Just we need Batman back.
Batman's going to make a reappearance. All right,
Cool.
Phil. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Catch you later.
Bye.